Yo, what's good, y'all? You Dell back again here in 2019. Let's get it. Coming to you with the second episode of the flaws of MMA. Now, I was thinking about doing this video for like the last several days, but I was like, let me hold off, let me hold off, let me hold off. Now, in the last episode, I dealt with No Mas Vale Tudo. Okay, short little intro as to why MMA did not become what it needed to become. In this video specifically, I'm going to be addressing part of the downfall and what you see even still affecting today. Now, there will be a video later on down the line, the next couple episodes of one of them will be the No True MMA and then the Ronda Rousey effect that I look forward to because those will be a hell of a lot of fun and I've alluded to them in conversations with different friends and such over time. But in this video, grappling. Now, early on in MMA history, no disrespect to the Gracie family, okay, Royce Gracie and whatnot, but we saw that, guys like legendary. I love me some Ken Shamrock. We saw Ken Shamrock. There was plenty of the old legends. We saw that they were great grapplers. And when it came to MMA, gotta understand that back then there were not really world class strikers at all. Um, you had guys like Iceman Chuck Liddell, who, no disrespect, I would call. I may have to go back and look at him as a fighter, but from what I see, more of a street fighter. It's not a bad thing. Street fighting is its own martial art. Not saying he did not have a martial art background. I don't want to be misunderstood. But what I'm saying is, like, you didn't really have world class boxers for the most part. You didn't have world class kickboxers. You didn't have world class, for the most part, karatekas, uh, and taekwondo and such. Not saying there were no practitioners, but it wasn't at the level. It just wasn't there. So what you had is you saw grappling dominate. Now, what happens when a lot of these youngins who come from wrestling backgrounds, who come from jujitsu backgrounds, who come from, in some cases, maybe judo backgrounds, any form of grappling backgrounds, they'll be like, oh, well, I just see such and such do this, then I might as well, I can go into MMA. I don't really need striking. Wrong. It's called mixed martial arts, meaning you need to be able to do all of it. And some could say, well, some try to say, well, boxing's inferior because they don't grapple. Wrong. Kickboxing, wrong. Muay Thai, wrong. The striking disciplines set up the foundation of all that is martial arts. And again, I may have to do a video following this one up with the different psychologies and philosophies between strikers and grapplers. Okay, but this is imperative to note. I'll take a note out of that one before I continue on. When you look at it, I've said this and I'll say it again. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Strikers can learn to grapple. Okay, can be very effective at grappling. Grappling to striking is a hell of a lot more difficult. Okay, like I said, I'll explain that in that video more in depth. But understand, if you're growing up learning how to strike, you learn angles, you learn range, and you learn distance. You learn footwork. You learn how to deal with pressure, how to actually take punches, and get accustomed to taking punches. Because in actual striking martial arts, you spar. Grappling, yes and no. Guys from a wrestling background, sure. Then you have hybrid martial arts like Sambo. Okay, they actually be about it, but they involve striking. Okay, so what happens is you have these guys that are used to grappling, and they approach every opponent looking to do really the same thing. Honestly, when it comes to a lot of these grapplers back then, and I'll get to the effect that it actually had on the youngins as I was growing up, and which is why I know this was the flaw of the MMA. is that you had three approaches when you were dealing with these grappler oriented grappler only, not guys who were masters of the craft of wrestling. Guys who are mad. Let me put this disclaimer. I think this is imperative because I know I'm gonna get chewed up by somebody. Oh, but you didn't say wondered. Listen, guys who are masters of any martial art can deal in all scenarios. Seriously, you got a guy like Ip Man, Grandmaster of Wing Chun, could face off against any martial art. You got a guy like Bruce Lee could face off against any martial art. Chuck Norris could face off. Muhammad Ali could face off against any martial art. I guarantee you Floyd Money Mayweather Jr., I have him, could face off against any martial art. And the list goes on and on. But those are the masters and the grandmasters. We're talking about the regular person here, or the regular athlete or fighter, right? These guys aren't a Brock Lesnar, okay? They don't number one, they don't have the proper fundamentals down. So they get sloppy. They develop bad habits. Brock Lesnar is an absolute monster. Daniel Cormier is an absolute monster when it comes to wrestling. Both of those are two of the greatest wrestlers alive. Okay? They don't have game plan on some Khabib Nurmagomedov with his grappling where he comes just to maul you. And he knows what his strong points are. And he imposes his will and dominates. Okay? They don't understand that a fight can go a long time. When you're dealing with striking teaches you to go for potentially 20 plus rounds if we're talking at a world class level. Okay? Striking, you ever notice how striking martial arts, some of them go a long time, some of them not so much, but you can tell that those that don't go so much aren't the highest level with striking. Striking, you learn to take damage. You learn to take that. You can learn to stuff takedowns. And so these guys that come from just this grappling only think everybody's going to act like a grappler. They're not going to take the same stance. They're not going to fight fair. They're not looking to roll with you. They're not looking to go to the ground. I can go to the ground because I know how to grapple. I'm not looking to go to the ground. But when I go to the ground, I'm going to be tenacious and not going to acquiesce to what you think I'm going to do. You see? When you're facing a striker who can grapple, then he's going to hit you with positions you're not accustomed to. If all you know is wrestling, and you facing someone who's a judoka, jujitsu practitioner, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, who's a boxer, whatever, they're not going to approach the fight the same way that you do as a wrestler. And if you think everybody's going to come in doing the same thing, you're going to get blasted. And that's what you saw in a lot of MMA. As things evolved, understand boxing and a lot of these other martial arts have been around for well over a century professionally, decades professionally. MMA hadn't. So MMA hadn't caught up. But once the strikers, people like, oh, let me go ahead. They come from different backgrounds, and they come from, some of these guys were like, some of these grapplers learn how to strike, and some of these strikers learn how to grapple. Then these grapple only guys got washed, they got wrecked, they got body bag, they got exposed. They didn't look that good. Some of these guys may have been, top contenders of former champions, but now they're getting wiped by these guys who've been training in these various disciplines. And so, how did this affect? And again, I'm making these brief episodes relatively. How did this affect? I remember coming up and all these guys, oh, I train in MMA, oh, I watch MMA. And as soon in a street fight, instead of throwing these hands, they try to go grapple. It was so disappointing to me. Every single time I tried, when the rare times that I was going to get in a fight, or even, unless we were sparring boxing, okay? If we're sparring boxing, that's a whole different animal. But if it was an actual fight, every single time, especially when they noticed I was about that business, they tried to grapple me. You know how disappointing that is? Also, they didn't know how to grapple. Even if it got taken to the ground, because there was this once, one scenario where he did get taken to the ground. The guy couldn't finish me off because he didn't know what he was doing down there. He was just trying to use his size. He think, oh, I'm just bigger, I'm just stronger. No, no. And again, if you're a street fighter, then again, you have a mix. Okay? If you're in a lot of these other martial arts, you actually have a mix in fighting styles. Even if you're a brawler, you likely have a mix. But these grapple only guys get exposed. They get exposed. I mean, if I don't need to showcase anything of relevance, look at Ben Askren's KO. Look how he literally ducked his head into a flying knee. Just happened at UFC. Was it 239? Just happened. What the hell? I watched that on because one of my homies, shout out to Dalton. He sent me the clip and it was like because I didn't get to see this past UFC, but dude, I watched that like 4 times on repeat. He literally, the first thing he does is duck his head. Mad cocky Ben Askren ducks his head and caught a flying knee. How do you catch a flying knee and it KO'd him like that? For one, he ain't used to taking those shots. Two, he led right into it, kind of how Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao walked into Maidana's punch. But anyways, whole different thing. The point I'm making is this was a flaw of MMA. If you think you can just be, ooh, MMA is, I'm think I'm good at grappling, and I'm just gonna go in and become a UFC champion or a Bellator champion, you're gonna get your block knocked off. Is what's gonna happen. If you think you can go into a street fight and thinking which he could be nose holes barred or whatever, or thinking is MMA, and you go in there thinking, well, I'm just gonna grapple. Yo, you gonna get wrecked coming against a competitive fighter, or your ass gonna get tired. Because here's the thing about grappling. Last thing I'll say about grappling is it's tiresome. One of the reasons I can't stand dealing with with grappling, that junk is so tiresome, bro. Junk is so tiresome. Now, punching when you out of shape is tiresome, but grappling is even more so. That junk is nothing to play with. All right. Unexpected one to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on the matter. Um, Let me know if there's any MMA, more MMA content you want me to talk about, and we'll see if we can get that done for you. All right, y'all. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night. Peace.